According to an ADHD reflection paper by Paul Newfield and Michael Foy, between 1990 and 1995, the number of children and adolescents diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder had increased from 950,000 to 2.3 million. In the next 5 years, this number doubled again, reaching roughly 4 million. This dramatic rise of ADHD is very closely connected to the changing nature of U.S. school systems and often a reason for students being inaccurately diagnosed. In 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act was passed, which required that all students, regardless of disabilities, were to remain in the same educational environment. This means there would no longer be separate classrooms for disabled and non-disabled students. The presence of disabled students in general education classrooms implies an increase in disruptive behaviors in said classrooms. Here's where another factor comes into play: reformation in methods of disciplining classrooms. In previous times, when a student misbehaved, instructors would strike the child as a disciplinary act. In modern times, this act is illegal in 31 states and most certainly frowned upon in others. Corporal punishment is simply not socially acceptable anymore with the changing times. In addition to new policies regarding desegregation and anti-corporal punishment, academic standards have also changed greatly. Graduation requirements now involve a much more intensive curriculum, involving much higher concentration in classrooms. For an example, the new Common Core standards in the United States involve a great amount of preparation and studying. Focus in schools has shifted from preparing students for the real world by teaching them morals, manners, and discipline, to preparing them for college with rigorous curriculum. This is due to a changing society which now almost requires people to attend college to get a career, rather than getting a well-paying job with a high school degree. Because of increased pressures, teachers and students are much more focused on delivering and retrieving academic instruction that there is less room for disturbances by students during class time. All of these factors combined cause great stress for educators, so they look to find a simple, inexpensive solution, which happen to be stimulants. Pharmaceuticals such as Adderall and Ritalin were developed to calm the disruptive students down and to help them focus. How convenient that teachers could force students to be effective in a learning environment with something as simple as a pill. Teachers and administrators would contact the parents of a child with challenging behavior and suggest that their child see a psychiatrist to be evaluated for ADHD. More often than not, the child will be diagnosed. Since ADHD is a mental disorder, the criteria are not very rigid. If the parent reports certain behavior in their child, this could be enough evidence for a doctor to diagnose the child with ADHD, as there aren't many effective tests of measuring the disorder. Upon diagnosis, the psychiatrist would prescribe a stimulant to the child, and as simple as that, the behavioral issues would vanish. Now comes the controversial question: is it really safe to be medicating young children with Ritalin? The use of medication for misbehavior is generally the lazy way out. Instead of teaching a child right from wrong, teachers and parents are giving up and resorting to drugs to do the work for them. This awful reality is evidently a trend in today's society. One risk associated with the use of stimulants in children is the possibility of dependency on the drug. Stimulants are physically and mentally addictive, therefore there is the risk of becoming hooked on the pills. In addition, there is the risk of these stimulants being distributed elsewhere. Although this isn't exactly relevant for young children, adolescents and young adults who are prescribed stimulants for ADHD often sell the drugs to others who will then abuse them. Today's teenagers use Adderall to get high, and college students use them to focus on studying. All of these risks should be taken into account when considering the use of stimulants for ADHD, especially for those who are falsely diagnosed. I would like to accredit the following sources for images and content used throughout this presentation.